Hello, my sweet, sweet souls, and my beautiful, red, horned demons, all dwelling in the demon portal. I hope that you're enjoying that I'm opening the portal every single day for you. It doesn't take a whole lot, so I'm really going to keep trying to do that. Anyways, today's story is There's a Killer in My Town, Part 3 of the riveting series written by Casper1432. aka Beautiful Nightmare. So, just sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy yourselves. Callie. The last letter that I wrote probably gave you the impression that I was dead, huh? Well, I'm alright for now. I could have made it less cryptic, but if I had written it any other way, then just listen. All you need to know right now is that there is a serial killer on the loose, and yes, I'm still hunting the son of a bitch. Now, I want to explain what happened after I ended the last letter, so here it goes. I had written the last letter when I had gotten home, despite my house being a crime scene. I proceeded to run up the staircase and into my bedroom where I grabbed all of my clothes out of the closet. I managed to grab everything from the dresser drawers as well as my desk where I kept the case files for each murder and stuffed it all into as many bags as I could possibly find. Yet I only took the memorable, the meaningful things that Marcus had given me. I may have lost my husband to a psychopath, but there wasn't a chance in hell that I was going to completely lose the memory of him. There were so many things I wanted to take along with me, but there wasn't a lot of time to pack it up and still have been able to figure out where I would be going next. I knew there wasn't much time before the police started their manhunt. I had gone rogue. And the only thing that tops hunting a psychopathic serial killer on the precinct's list of importance is to find a rogue cop. I knew they'd say I was crazy and try to haul my ass off to the asylum in Haven Valley, which wasn't going to happen. The most important things that I'd grabbed were these envelopes, otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to write you. However, I did grab the police scanner out of the hallway closet, stuffed it into a separate bag, and quickly sneaked out of the house, only to see a police cruiser slowly driving down the street. I ducked behind a bush and watched the officer shine a spotlight toward the front of my house, outlining every intricate detail of siding and illuminating the living room through the main window, before driving off down the street. Fuck. They were already out looking for me and I still had no idea where the hell I was going to go. By this point, they would be ass deep into the procedures of this case, combing my financial records, looking into real estate listed under my name, and conducting their searches on all of them. Lucky enough for me, I knew of the one place that was no longer listed underneath my name. I was certain they had already tied said place to me, but it's been abandoned since my parents died. My parents used to own a cabin in the outskirts of town, so it was the only place I could lay low long enough to gather my thoughts, maybe get a few hours of sleep and further study each case going all the way back to the first murder, Ethan's. I'm not sure if I had said this before, but I'll say it now. The only way to catch the person doing this is to think like a criminal. You have to put yourself in their shoes. It was the one lead I was going to get. It wasn't easy to stealthily drive across town without drawing attention to yourself, especially since everyone in town knew what kind of car I drove. Marcus's loving face will be the one thing that I won't be able to forget. There was always a dashing smile plastered to his face whenever I would get home from work. Dinner would always be on the table, no matter how late work had kept me. I already missed the light snoring in the living room when I'd get home from a long, tiresome day, or hearing that sweet, loving voice when I'd wake up in the morning. No, Marcus. I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you. I wish more than anything I hadn't gone to work that morning, that I could go back and do it all again. The nice memories of my late husband faded into something more sinister, something that I didn't want to talk about. How could my life be completely turned upside down in 1 week? How could I have practically lost everything in the few hours that I'd been at work that unfortunate day? What exactly had I done to piss someone off to this extent? What could I do to clear my name other than catching the person responsible? Those thoughts bring me back to the night Tanya was killed. The guy whom had killed Tanya claimed to have found the dead body laying on the ground, claimed to have been startled by my deputy, which caused him to kill her. If that truly were the case, then why was he carrying a knife with him, or was it the killer's knife left behind because something actually had startled him, such as the guy whom Tanya and I had shot? Could the guy responsible for killing Tanya have been carrying the knife as a way of protecting himself, since the news decided to broadcast about the murders on live television? I still didn't know what he had been trying to say to me right before he passed away. Believe me, I had roamed through every possible thing he could have been attempting to tell me, yet I came up empty-handed. Jeez, could the situation get any worse? I didn't bother to flick the turn signal down, indicating that I was turning left. The car jerked to the right a bit once the tires hit an old, run-down dirt path. The bare trees stretched their ashen branches into the sky, screaming to the clouds for nothing more than a moment of solace. The fire from a few months ago had damaged them beyond repair. I was accustomed to seeing the leafless, decaying things. The cabin, on the other hand, I was not a fan of what my eyes were seeing. The once white panels were now green, covered with a light coating of frost. The brown shingles atop the roof had caved in. A few of the windows were cracked and shattered due to the weather exposure and the occasional vandal over the years. The front deck still damp from the dusting of snow that happened the previous night. The decrepit-looking structures once a place that I'd called a second home. It looked a little better than the front had, but it was still slowly rotting away. I parked the car in the furthest section of the surrounding trees that I could find, used the unharmed brush and an old, ripped tarp to cover it before I carefully made my way through the yard, in case the bear traps my dad used to have laid out here were still there. Something squeaked underneath my right foot once I had stepped onto the cracked cement. I looked down to see an old brown doll. The left eye was missing. The stitching of each arm and leg had come unstrung, and a few of the fingers and the hands were gone. Damn animals. It was once the most beautiful doll I'd laid eyes on as a kid. It was the one thing most precious to me at that time, until my father drunkenly destroyed it. The doll was just a reminder of how many bruises and the broken arm I'd acquired that day because my mother was too frightened to defend herself, let alone 3 small children. My childhood hadn't been the best. It was the reason why my brother committed suicide when he turned 11. He just couldn't take the beatings any longer. There were often times when my sister and myself thought it would be best to follow in the footsteps of our brother and leave behind the abuse. In the end, we decided that once we were old enough, then we would be able to get away. We were honestly relieved when the police broke the news that our parents had been killed in a car accident. Identifying the bodies were easy and actually the best thing that happened during my childhood. Having said all of that, it would have been easier to just say that I had a bad childhood, but I figured it was best to explain now than in the future. I kicked the beaten-up doll out of my way, lifted up the welcome mat outside the back door, to see the rusted key to this rickety, aged place. I slipped inside, dug around the dusty, cobweb-filled kitchen until I found the old-fashioned oil lamp. It's been 10 years since my parents were killed in that miraculous car wreck. 10 years is too long for a beautiful place like this to sit without anyone taking care of it. Like I've stated before, my childhood wasn't the best, so it didn't faze me as much when my parents passed away. Then again, I had my younger sister to worry about. We made it through just fine. Things actually got better for me once I had Marcus to help me through the rough times, and now, well, let's just say the only thing keeping me going at that current point in time was the thought of catching the person who had taken away the true love of my life, and making sure that you weren't dragged into this screwed up mess. The cabin had power, and I knew that because I had been the anonymous person paying to keep it on. I couldn't actually use the power for anything other than to plug in the police scanner in order to keep close tabs on the investigation, and to keep the refrigerant running to keep my food cold. The floor groaned beneath my feet when I carried everything into the dining room. I spread out the case files across the rotting, worn-down table. My eyes glanced at each and every photo I had. I read through all of the reports and witness statements. A sudden thought popped into my mind while staring down at the photos from the Phillips and Curtis murders. I remembered that night like it happened yesterday. Dimitri Jenkins was the only person whom had survived the night. He had been knocked out and only came to shortly after Luke and I had arrived, which led to Officer Kincaid being killed. There it was. The only other thing about those killings that didn't quite fit other than my connection to everyone who had passed away. Again, it was a small town. My mind gets stuck on the newfound theory that maybe, just maybe, it was a police officer responsible for the murders happening in town. It was a ridiculous thought, trust me. I knew what it sounded like, but it was the only sensible theory I had at that particular moment. It would have definitely explained the intelligence of committing a crime without leaving any evidence behind. Because he and/or she already knew forensic countermeasures. Was I seriously onto something? Was I really going to believe that someone who had sworn to protect the townsfolk could actually do something as sick and twisted as this? No. I shook my head in disbelief. There wasn't any possibility an officer was capable of doing something as horrifying as that, yet the evidence was there. Someone. Was someone trying to frame me? I understood it. I mean, I was handed the job of sheriff after the only candidates were killed. Was someone within my own rank jealous about it and decided to take matters into their own hands even after killing off the competition in hopes that I would be the guilty party? No, just plain fucking no. You're tired, Dean, I told myself. A few hours of shut-eye should help you get your mind straight. We have 1054 on Lombard Street. Any unit in the vicinity, please respond. The police scanner statically crackled. 10-4. A woman's voice confirmed. I had almost forgotten how unpleasing that stupid device was when there was chatter going through the radio frequencies. I was beginning to regret turning on the annoying thing, but it needed to be on in case something major were to happen. The bothersome ticking of my wristwatch filled the silent room. Minutes were passing by faster than my brain could read, which made me all the more determined to find a clue hidden within the reports, the photos, and everything else in my possession. I stayed glued to that table for as long as I physically could, only stepping away once or twice to use the bathroom during what felt like a majority of the day. My time was devoted to my work. It was the only thing keeping me going, the only thing keeping me sane. The surrounding rooms eventually darkened, yet I remained sitting upright on the uncomfortable wooden chair. My back was in an excruciating amount of pain. It didn't matter, though. The day was quickly fading into night. My stomach growled from hunger, yet churned from disgust. My mind was stuck on my theory, stuck on the evidence slowly presenting itself to me. Officers be advised, possible sighting of Sheriff Randall near the corner of Davenport and Raven Drive, over. The dispatcher's scratchy voice interrupted my thoughts. Officer Collins here, copy that. While finding the sheriff is critical, we also need to be on lookout for any suspicious activity in town. Our killer is still out there, and we are damn well going to find them, Luke said. Jesus fuck, I sighed. I really am a wanted man. How the hell am I going to explain this if someone finds me here? Negative on Dean. It was a few teenagers jogging, another voice cut in. We've checked everywhere in town. He must have fled. Where would he have? Luke's voice started, but faded out. Actually, we should probably switch over to an encrypted channel. If he hasn't left town, he may be listening. He has nothing left in this town. Of course he fled. You saw how distraught he was about his husband, Jenkins. There has to be a reason for him to stick around town. We just need to find it. Copy that. Of course I haven't fled town. Ignorant bastards. I have a murderer to catch, I grumbled. My annoyance level had already hit its maximum. I was drained emotionally, physically, and mentally. There wasn't any chance in hell that they were going to find out what else was keeping me around the area of Snow Creek. 4 days and 3 nights of closely studying the cases had passed by in a breeze. My mind had been delved so deep into the theory of an officer being responsible that I had barely noticed how hungry I was until my stomach loudly gurgled. I hadn't realized exactly how long I had been sitting in that chair until I glanced at my watch. It was 6:30 in the evening of the 4th day. I stood up from the chair, the muscles of my back ached as I stretched my sore and tired limbs. My feet trampled across the old newspapers laying on the floor upon going into the other room. The sun was low over the horizon when I peered out of the small kitchen window. Everything outside of the cabin hadn't moved in the time I had been there. I was grateful to have remembered a family heirloom, even if it was a worn-down building. My stomach was so unsettled from looking at those photos that I decided not to eat once again. There was one thing that stuck out to me about my theory. I understand that killers like to keep trophies from each victim they kill, but what exactly was the reason behind taking Marcus's genitals when the person was adamant on taking the liver of each victim? What made Marcus so different from the rest? How could he even think to do that? Adrenaline coursed throughout my entire body upon each new dark thought about my theory that entered my mind. I was on a roll with looking over the files, exhausted from lack of sleep and honestly, fed up with all the bullshit that came across the police scanner. "Dispatch," a rough voice filled the room. "Go ahead," the dispatcher responded. This was Edwin Callahan. "I think I found Dean Randall." My heart sank upon hearing that statement. The coursing adrenaline that had been freely flowing through my veins vanished as quickly as it come, replaced solely by a lump in my throat as the pounding of dread in my heart. Shit. This was not how this was going to end. No. Not until I catch the damn killer. I apologize for this letter being short. I wish I had more time to explain the rest of my time at the cabin, but I am currently packing up my things and soon I'll be on the road. No idea where I'm going, but I will write once I get settled somewhere. I love you, my dear sister. Dean.